Yo, what's up GameLeapers? Coach Cheese is back this time and 11.3 is now live. So to find out the 15 champions you should think twice about playing in the next 2 weeks, this video is the one for you. You see, with each patch guys comes a new pro guides ad and a shift in the League of Legends landscape. Some champions suddenly become OP, some champions suddenly become dog tier, but don't worry, I'm here to guide you through the unknown in just the next 10 minutes or so. Speaking of guides, guys, our GameLeap website, I cannot encourage you enough. If you want to improve and reach the top of the ranks, to check it out ASAP because we have everything. Updated daily content including guides, courses, videos, coach cheers, everything. So do yourself a favor and click on one of the links in the description and comment section. Alright, let's get into it, and kicking off the countdown, coming in at number 15 is a champion who, despite receiving a buff to her items, is still struggling to compete in a meta where hard engaged supports are prevalent and damage is still high. Now as KALISTA guys, yeah, shield bow got buffed, 5 more attack damage and 5 more attack speed, so you will hit a little harder and attack a little more, but is this going to stop you dying 10 times a game? No. The thing is as well guys, as KALISTA, your biggest strength is your mobility, but without peel and a QSS it's near impossible to stay alive in teamfights and hard carry. Now I will say this, and this is the reason KALISTA isn't higher up on our countdown, if you can master her, she can work. She's even been seen in a few pro matches recently, but in solo queue where peeling doesn't exist and the enemy Aurelia is 10 and 0, yeah, you're dying no matter what. Better ADCs are out there guys. Okay, just ahead of KALISTA we have a champion who actually got buffed this patch, so how can he still be bad? Well, if you pick EZREAL guys, the only thing you will be exploring this patch are losses. You see, you have to hope your team is doing well so the game goes long enough for you to buy your major items and actually start doing stuff. And on top of that, what can you do against a Vayne, a Jhin, a Misfortune, a KAITLYN, these heavy hitters? Yeah, they just hit more heavy. They just do way more damage, right? So even though you're getting 10% more damage in your queue, it's not enough to let you go toe-to-toe with these juggernauts. Mirror Mana as well, guys, still cost 2,900 gold, which stalls your scaling compared to when it was just 2,600 gold, and your spike with Divine Sunderer is decent-ish, but as I said, you're not going to be able to match a KAITLYN or Vayne with Kraken Slayer. Now the next champion on our countdown is one who used to be the most broken in the entire game. He could solo Baron at 20 minutes, he could 1v9, he could clear camps quicker than anyone else despite being a tank. You guessed it, it's Amumu. Now who remembers when the green bandage tosser had a 60% win rate at the start of the preseason? Well, the mummy is now a shade of his former self, and let me throw this stat at you. His win rate in Master and above is 28%. There's more chance legit of me buying one of those grooming tools from Manscaped. Now the multiple nerfs to Amumu and Sunfire Aegis have put him in the dirt, and even the nerf to his mana growth back in 1024 is still relevant today. Your clear is worse, you run more often, you are way more exploitable, and you can't compete with the fast clearing junglers in meta right now. You can still have a good game or two in lower levels of play just because you won't get punished nearly as much, but still it's worth investing your time into another champion in 11.3 guys. Now the next champion on our list has been on so many of our worst champion videos, it's like it won't be one without him at this point. Now this mid laner got buffed in 11.2, but it barely changed the fact he's one of the worst champions on the Rift right now, and that's AZIR. Now in high elo and pro play he performs pretty well, but in diamond to iron it's a completely different story. Having your Q up 1 second earlier, yeah, it's kind of useful, especially once you're almost full build with Liandry's Anguish and a ton of ability haste, but how often are you going to make it to 5 to 6 items? Now I could say this for any mid laner, but if your team is losing early on AZIR, that game is much harder just because you need time to scale. On top of that, Nash's no longer gives you cooldown reduction like it used to, so rushing that is troll, and none of the mythics give you a big enough power spike so you can compete with popular mid laners like Fizz, Echo, Yone, and Yasuo. If you like pigeons, then by all means play AZIR, but if you like wins, it would be wise to play someone else. Alright, our next pick guys is another mid laner who improved a little bit this patch with buffs to potential major items, but overall, he's still weak. Now as RYZE, you are the most killable champion in the mid lane, so if you're win trading, definitely pick him, but if you want to climb, don't. In this meta where damage is flying all over the place, a bit like COVID, you don't have a vaccine for it. Seraph Embrace used to be your cure, you know, because it gave you a big ass shield, but it doesn't anymore, and Rod of Ages has been ult F4'd, so no health, no survivability. On top of that, Seeker's Armguard and Zhonya's Hourglass are 100 gold more expensive, so against AD mid laners like Talon and Zed, you're vulnerable for longer. Now Frozen Heart and Banshee's Veil got buffed as you can see, and both of these help with surviving and give you enough damage to be relevant, but the fact is that there are much better mages like Anivia and Malzahar to achieve the same things on. We're now into the top 10 worst champions of 11.3, guys, and kicking off the top 10 is a champion who got buffed this patch just like EZREAL, but remains just really underwhelming and bad. Now, Riot have forced you Karma players to play her as a support in recent patches. In 11.1, Riot increased your shield at later levels, and in this patch, your mana regen is up, and your Q costs less mana, but the fact is you are still nothing compared to Seraphine, Lulu, Nami. Like, you don't have any real CC to stop hard engages like Leona and Alistar, and you might be able to shield your ADC from enemy assassins, but what else do you have? Like, seriously. There are just better enchanter supports to play for the next 14 days. Alright, holding the 9th spot in our countdown, we're heading back to the ADC role for this one, and this is another champion that has been struggling for a while. Now, XAYAH got buffed in 11.1, and Essence Reaver got buffed in 11.2, so how can she still be weak? Well, these buffs that reduce the cooldown and mana cost on your E and gave you more mana back from Spellblade, they increase your win rate to 47%. Wow. Now, the truth is, guys, that XAYAH is still struggling in the bot lane just like EZREAL against the best AD carries like Jhin, Kai'Sa, Vayne. She doesn't have the same power spikes, takes way too long to come online, and I've said this in our previous Worst Champions videos, her ultimate is on a 3-minute cooldown. For Coach Jizz, that's an eternity. Now, with Seraphine nerfed as well and Staff of Flowing Water nerfed, heavy CC supports will dominate the bot lane, and making it to 2 to 3 items will be an even bigger ask. If you're choosing Gale Force as well, its active being back on a 90-second cooldown doesn't help either. Now, we're going to stay in the marksman department for our next pick, guys, and like XAYAH and EZREAL, you can't get fed enough to battle it out with the best ADCs right now. As CAITLYN, you may have received an AD per level buff last patch, but this hasn't changed anything. You may have the highest basic attack range out of every AD carry, but in silver and gold, everyone's range is the same, let's be honest. The shield bow buffs this patch as well do nothing for you either, because Gale Force and Kraken Slayer offer more AD, and you need this for your headshot damage. And as I mentioned, Gale Force's cooldown is back to 90 seconds, and let's be honest, once you're caught out as CAITLYN, there is no surviving, and those supports that jump onto you, again like Leona, Thresh, Alistar, even Rel, will be seen more in 11.3. Okay, let's give AD carries time to breathe for a minute and focus our attention on our next champion, and holding the 7th spot on our countdown is a champion whose path to F tier has been similar to Amumu's. Now, who remembers at the start of the preseason when Zac was arguably the best champion in the game? Well, the reason for that was Sunfire Aegis, and it's also the reason for Zac's demise. All of the nerfs to its damage means you clear camps slower and your fighting is weaker. Riot taking 100 HP off this mythic was also big because your whole kit revolves around having heaps of health. And finally, Sunfire Aegis' mythic passive changing last patch so that it no longer gives ability haste was the finishing Ric Flair low blow, and cooldown on Zac is his next most important stat, after health of course. Even though the buff to Gargoyle Stoneplate helps you out, you're not building this until later in a game, and just getting to that point is a huge effort. Alright, up next, guys, it pains me to put another AD carry in this countdown, but we can't run from the fact that your chances of winning on APHELIOS are not that high at all. Now, Runar's Hurricane may well be 800 gold cheaper than when it was 3400 gold, Shield Bow may be better, but Kraken Slayer and Gale Force give you more damage, and Riot fixed the bug where your Severum Q was dealing 100% of Kraken Slayer's true damage. He is sometimes picked in pro play, yes, but that's because pro teams are coordinated. They are well-oiled machines, apart from the NA teams. Like, the core problem is that unless you play perfectly and dodge every skill shot and CC in the game, it doesn't matter if you have Runar's a minute or two earlier, you're still going to die. Like the other marksmen on this list, you need Peel to survive and dish out all your damage. Okay, we're now at the top 5, guys, and we have big champions to reveal, but before we do, one last friendly reminder to head on over to our website when I stop talking, because you are guaranteed to improve and hard carry and win and climb. Join thousands of your fellow summoners and get amongst it. Links down below. Now, coming in at number 5 is another champion who got buffed this very patch, but will still run into a lot of trouble in the mid and top lane. So Riot buffed VLADIMIR's ultimate cooldown, so it's now 120 seconds at all ranks. It seems good, right? You can use it more often, and your team doesn't have to wait as long to fight around Baron and Dragon because you're waiting for your ultimate to come back up. But in this meta, anti-healing is everywhere at the moment. Even supports now have more access to Grievous wounds because of the Chemtech Putrefy buff, and getting to that late game where you are still very strong as Vlad, don't get me wrong, it's going to be harder, and will your ultimate's cooldown actually help you get there? I really doubt it. Now, moving on to number 4, and if you were to guess which role this champion is played in, how many of you would say ADC? Because that's right, there's another one that's going to find success hard to come by in 11.3. I was honestly surprised Riot didn't buff Varus again because they've tried to for the last 2 patches, but he remains as one of the worst marksmen all around. So the recent buff, yeah, you're getting a little more mana per level and your ultimate's cooldown is lower at earlier ranks, but how does this help you when a Vayne tumbles into you, or a KAISA ults next to you? The fact is that you have nowhere near enough 100 to 0 damage to compete in this meta, unlike the strongest AD carries. Like I said for EZREAL, mirror mana now costs more, so you have to wait longer for your spike, and unfortunately your big problems still exist. There's no optimal build path, and whatever you do build gets outclassed by practically every other AD carry and what they are building. Alright, we're now into the top 3 guys, and I promise that this is the last ADC on this countdown. It feels as if I've gone through the whole class at this point, but yeah, this champion may have received buffs in 11.1, 2 patches on, still at the bottom of the pecking order. For Sivir guys, Gale Force's active is still 90 seconds, so you have to time your spell shield perfectly in fights to not die. Your early game is better since the buffs in 11.1, that's true, because you have more mana to spam your Q and W, and your Q hurts if you land both parts, but nothing is stopping you from dying, and your item spikes are pin compared to those of Jhin, Vayne, Misfortune. Shield Bow may help you survive a tad, but ideally you want as much AD as possible on Sivir so your Q and W cut through enemy champions. Plenty of other AD carries to choose from, guys. Okay, the runner-up to the worst champion in League in 11.3 is the worst champion from last patch. If you guys can't remember who it was, if I go, Yarr, does that ring any bells? So yeah, Gangplank is the champion, guys, and there are a couple of reasons as to why GP has only a 45% win rate. First of all, you don't get any mana or cooldown reduction from Shin anymore, so you can't harass and bully your opponents in lane as much, and no mythic can help you compete with the best tops this patch, like Cho'Gath with Turbo Chemtank, Nasus with Divine Sunderer, Wukong with Trinity Force. Like, your pistol might as well be a water pistol. So even if you do win lane, you get outscaled, and the only reason why you're not the worst champion is because you got a little AD and attack speed from the shield bow buff. So replacing GP at the top spot is a champion who many of us can't stand playing against, so maybe this is music to your ears, but let's play a bit of Who Am I to see if you can guess it. I am the assassin with no master. I strike alone and in silence, but I'm not as strong as I used to be. Last patch my Q got nerfed and resulted in me having the worst win rate out of all champions, and in 11.3 I have to spend more gold for Seeker's Arm Guard and Zhonya's Hourglass. Oh, and also Lichbane gives me 10 less AP now. Even when mastered, I only have a 42% win rate. Guys, she needs more help than ever right now. I'm looking at you, Kennen and Shen, and it's the worst champion in League. It's Akali. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to like the video to let us know you enjoyed it, and subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss tomorrow's upload. This has been Coach Cheese. Peace.